The sky exploded at exactly 3:03 p.m. on a Wednesday. Birds fell from the air mid-flight, car alarms screamed in unison, and everyone collectively forgot how to breathe. Above Times Square, the clouds split like paper, revealing a churning rift pulsing with violet light. From it boomed a voice so massive it shook soda cans off tables across 4 continents. This planet is now claimed by the Council of Obliteration. You have 72 Earth hours to surrender. Resistance will result in the boiling of your oceans and the gift wrapping of your moon. And just like that, Earth had an eviction notice. Some cried. Some prayed. Some posted memes. #NotMyPlanet trended within 7 minutes. Politicians stammered, militaries scrambled, and influencers tried to go live before they died. Somewhere in Oregon, a cult threw a barbecue to welcome our shiny overlords. In Tokyo, someone proposed to a hologram of the alien emissary with a custom diamond ring. Humanity, in all its confusion, responded exactly how you'd expect: loud, chaotic, and completely unprepared. Meanwhile, in a basement apartment that smelled vaguely of microwaved burritos and old Nerf guns, Trent Maxwell took a sip of lukewarm coffee and muttered, "Well, that's new." He was 34, recently fired from his job at a smoothie place for starting a debate on whether bananas had emotions, and currently wearing pajama pants featuring rubber duckies. His greatest achievement thus far was getting banned from 3 online forums for being aggressively unhelpful. But today would be different. He didn't plan to save the world. He just wanted to see how far he could get before someone told him no. That was always his thing, pushing buttons, testing limits, poking bears just to see if they'd blink. So when he saw the emergency UN broadcast saying, "World leaders are working together to determine a response," he stood up, brushed the crumbs off his Star Wars t-shirt, and said aloud to no one in particular, "Bet I could do better." Trent was not a hero. He wasn't particularly brave, strong, or intelligent. But what he lacked in credentials, he more than made up for in audacity. And Earth, bless it, was in short supply of people like that. The kind who didn't know fear simply because they hadn't read the instruction manual on danger yet. 12 hours after the skycrack, world leaders convened in a top-secret facility buried beneath Geneva. The alien emissaries, flickering with static via a planetary hololink, towered over the council chamber, hulking, grotesque, and absolutely unimpressed. Representatives from 187 nations offered appeasements, peace talks, token gestures. All were rejected. The warlords wanted unconditional surrender or a spectacle. Preferably both. And then, somewhere between a failed plea from Canada and an accidental mute from Brazil, a door slammed open. Trent strolled into the chamber like he'd taken a wrong turn on the way to the vending machines. His badge, stolen from a terrified intern in the parking garage, read, "Diplomatic Assistant, Snacks Division." Nobody stopped him. He walked right up to the central holodais, looked up at the 15-foot-tall image of Zarkin the Planet Flayer, and said, "Hey, big guy. Mind if I take this one?" A collective gasp swept the room. Security didn't move. The aliens leaned forward, curious. Zarkin, covered in armor forged from the crusts of fallen worlds, narrowed his 6 eyes. "Identify yourself, carbon-based intruder," he growled. Trent scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Name's Trent. Earth Ambassador. Provisional. Unofficial. But available. You are not authorized. I'm also not afraid. So that kind of makes me overqualified, doesn't it?" There was silence, the kind that normally happens right before either someone is vaporized or promoted. Vrexa, the acid-blooded duchess, let out a sound that may have been a laugh or a burp. Bob, a gelatinous mass with a face like a sad pancake, blinked and whispered, "This one's weird. I like him." Trent crossed his arms. "Here's the deal. We're not surrendering. But I'm happy to talk options over snacks." The Earth leaders froze. Some mouthed prayers. A few hid under their chairs. No one spoke. Not until the alien leader's image shimmered slightly and said, "Very well. We will entertain your proposal. Speak tomorrow. Do not waste our time again, Earthling." The feed cut. The chamber erupted into screams. A French diplomat fainted. The Secretary General began crying softly into her sleeve. A Swedish delegate asked if anyone had a Xanax. And in the middle of it all stood Trent, holding a stolen granola bar and grinning like he just landed a date with an angry volcano. Outside the building, reporters swarmed. "Who are you?" they shouted. "Are you crazy? Do you represent Earth?" Trent paused on the stairs, holding his arms out dramatically. "I'm just a guy who wasn't afraid to step forward." Later, alone on a park bench with his phone blowing up and a global manhunt half-heartedly underway to remove him from diplomatic influence, Trent scrolled through his messages. One caught his eye. It was a direct ping from the Alien War Council. No subject. Just a video file. He tapped play. The image showed Earth from space. Then it zoomed in on North America. Then on New York. And then, it showed a target reticle blinking right over the UN building. He stared at it for a long moment, expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he stood. "Well," he said. "Guess I'd better go figure out how to bluff my way through galactic war negotiations." The screen cut to black. And somewhere, high above the planet, the Council of Obliteration laughed. The games had begun. The next morning, the world held its breath. Streets were empty, skies were watched, and every screen, from billboards to smartwatches, counted down the final seconds until the Earth's first ever official interstellar negotiation. People tuned in with popcorn, panic, or both. Some thought they'd witnessed the end of humanity, others hoped for a miracle. In a hidden UN facility with ceilings too high and coffee too weak, Trent Maxwell stood in front of a camera crew, wearing the only suit he owned, which smelled faintly of mothballs and garlic bread. He tightened a tie he didn't know how to tie, looked at the blinking light on the alien holoprojector, and said, "Let's do this." The room darkened. A low hum vibrated through the floor as the holographic council materialized one by one, each more bizarre than the last. Zarkin appeared first, draped in molten armor that oozed heat with every movement. Then came Vrexa, her skin shifting between shades of purple and green, eyes like knives dipped in glitter. Thrump arrived next, a gaseous being who hovered in a containment field and made sounds like a vacuum choking on gravel. Finally Bob entered, if entered was the right word for a gelatinous blob with a gentle smile and a cowboy hat. No one had ever asked about the hat. No one dared. Trent cleared his throat. "Morning. Afternoon? Whatever it is for you. I'll keep this short. Earth's not surrendering," Zarkin growled. "Then Earth will burn." "See, that's the thing," Trent said, holding up a hand like a man stalling a wild dog. "You could burn us." "Yeah. Totally. But then you missed the fun part." The council blinked. Or made equivalent gestures of confusion. Trent grinned. "You're warlords, right? Big scary conquerors with cool names and dramatic capes. You've destroyed planets, squashed empires, bathed in lava, whatever. But there's something you haven't done yet." Thrump burbled. "Explain before I implode out of boredom." "You haven't made it entertaining," Trent said, stepping forward, his voice steady. "Anyone can destroy a planet. But humiliating one? Outwitting one? Beating their best in your own games? That's prestige. That's legacy. That's something no warlord has pulled off since, well, ever." Bob gurgled thoughtfully. "He's not wrong." Zarkin glared. "You propose a challenge?" Trent nodded. "Earth selects a champion, me. You pit me against your trials. Win, and Earth surrenders. But if I win, you walk away. Leave Earth alone. Forever." Vrexa leaned forward, her voice a hiss. "You are an unqualified, untrained, squishy man-child." "Thank you," Trent said. "But I also have something your warriors don't, absolutely no clue what I'm doing. Which makes me wildly unpredictable." A long silence followed. The council exchanged looks, a strange telepathic current of laughter, doubt, and curiosity zipping between them. Then Zarkin spoke. "We accept. 3 challenges. Beginning tomorrow. The holograms vanished in a flash of light. And just like that, the fate of Earth was in the hands of a man who once lost a game of tic-tac-toe to a vending machine. The world exploded with opinions. News anchors speculated wildly. Sports commentators broke down Trent's odds using pie charts and prayer. Governments panicked, not over the deal, but over the fact that none of them had made it. A Chinese diplomat called Trent a chaotic diplomatic burrito. The Pope tweeted a simple prayer emoji. Meanwhile, Trent sat in a cramped green room eating a granola bar and trying to figure out what the hell he'd just done. He was joined by Talia Jennings, a career intelligence analyst assigned to be his advisor/babysitter. She walked in holding a tablet, her expression half exhausted, half furious. "You're insane," she said flatly. "Accurate," Trent replied, offering her the other half of his granola bar. "You understand what you agreed to? You have no idea what their games are." "Exactly. Which means they don't know how I'll screw them up. That's my advantage." Talia pinched the bridge of her nose. "That's not how strategy works." "It is," Trent said, "when your strategy is being the human equivalent of spilled soup." The next day, the first challenge was revealed. It was called gravity jousting. The arena? A rotating asteroid field near Jupiter, adjusted for maximum instability. Trent was handed a makeshift jetpack, a blunt plasma lance, and a 50-second training video in a language he didn't understand. His opponent was a 10-foot-tall warrior from the volcanic moon of Krenvax, known for its annual Screaming Festival. The odds were not in Trent's favor. The match began with a siren that sounded like a dying walrus. Trent flailed into the arena, pinwheeling through zero gravity, his lance slipping from his grip immediately. The alien warrior zoomed toward him with precision and malice, roaring loud enough to cause minor atmospheric tremors. Trent, trying to regain control, spun wildly and accidentally headbutted a floating rock. The rebound sent him into a lazy cartwheel straight into the alien's path. At the last second, Trent flailed again and somehow, miraculously, his foot clipped the control panel on the alien's jetpack. The warrior spiraled out of control, smashing into 3 rocks before disappearing into the void. The crowd, watching from orbital screens and thousands of alien live streams, went silent. Then erupted. Trent won. Technically. He floated there, upside down, breathing heavily and bleeding slightly from his eyebrow. He whispered, "Did I just win by accident?" "Yes," Talia said through his earpiece, voice equally shocked and appalled. "And now you're a galactic celebrity." Trent's image, dazed and goofy, was already going viral. Alien commentators called him the clumsy deathball. Merchandising rights were negotiated before he returned to Earth. Someone designed a plush toy of him mid-flail. A restaurant on Mars named a milkshake after him. But not everyone was pleased. In the council chamber, Rexa fumed. "This is mockery." Bob shrugged. "It's effective. He humiliated a Krenvaxian champion with incompetence. Still counts." Zarkin leaned back, thoughtful. "He may be more dangerous than we assumed. Proceed with caution." Back on Earth, Trent was paraded around as a hero. Not by the governments, who still wanted to arrest him, but by the people. He received messages from every corner of the planet, some grateful, some confused, some asking for dating advice. Talia tried to manage his schedule, but it quickly spiraled into chaos when Trent agreed to appear on a talk show and accidentally proposed to the host in 6 languages. That night, he sat alone on the roof of the embassy, watching stars shimmer faintly in the distance. He felt the weight of the world shift onto his shoulders, and for the first time, the humor faded from his face. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted softly. Talia sat beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. "Good," she said. "That's exactly why it might work." The second challenge was announced during what was supposed to be a routine breakfast briefing. Trent had just bitten into a pancake shaped like his own face, an unfortunate tribute from a fan-operated diner in Nevada, when the walls of the embassy buzzed, flickered, and transformed into a galaxy-spanning live feed. Every screen on Earth lit up with the swirling, shifting form of Thrump, who burbled the words, "Initiate Event 2," before violently sneezing himself off-screen. A moment later, a deep voice echoed across the planet, simultaneously translated in every human tongue. "Prepare for the intergalactic spelling bee." Trent blinked, syrup dripping down his fingers. "I'm sorry." "What?" It turned out that the spelling bee wasn't just about letters. It was a brutal memory test, an endurance trial, and a telepathic war zone. Contestants were injected with a mild psychic enhancer, forced to stand inside rotating anti-gravity orbs, and made to spell words from over 40 alien languages, some of which didn't even use sound. The current champion had 3 brains and a tongue like a squid wearing rollerblades. Trent had a C- average in high school English and once spelled chaos, with AK just to be edgy. Talia, already pale from stress and 4 hours of sleep in the last 3 days, simply placed a hand on her forehead and whispered, "We're doomed." The arena was an obsidian sphere suspended above Jupiter's storm wall, its walls etched with glowing glyphs and rotating panels of text from 1,000 civilizations. Trent floated awkwardly into place, bouncing off the inner surface with every movement. His opponent hovered beside him, a creature made entirely of translucent fractals, constantly rearranging itself into geometric impossibilities. Trent waved. "Hi. I like your vibe. Kinda kaleidoscope meets anxiety." The creature emitted a sound that made the judges wince and a nearby moon hiccup. The first word came from a race of telepathic spiders. It was pronounced via a sequence of mental clicks and required contestants to think the spelling into existence. The fractal entity nailed it in under 3 seconds. Trent looked at the judge panel and shrugged. "All right. Let's get weird." His mental version of the word resembled a mix of Queen lyrics and serial jingles. The screen flashed red. Strike 1. The next word was from a language composed entirely of glottal stops and blinking patterns. Trent blinked back in Morse code, spelling something that roughly translated to "Banana fight sadness?" Somehow, the system marked it correct. Back on Earth, betting markets imploded. No one knew how he was still standing. He wasn't winning by skill, he was surviving through pure, chaotic energy. On the 5th round, he won by accidentally guessing the correct sequence after sneezing mid-sentence. By the 9th, the fractal creature began to fracture out of sheer confusion. Judges looked at one another with mounting disbelief. And then, on the final word, a syllabic nightmare that sounded like a blender chewing tinfoil, Trent misheard it as Blorkensnarf, and spelled it phonetically. The system paused. And approved it. Victory was declared. On a distant asteroid casino, 1,000 aliens screamed in rage as their bets dissolved. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Children screamed the word Blorkensnarf. In playgrounds, and elderly people wore t-shirts that said, "Spell it like Trent." Even the United Nations issued a statement that read, carefully and begrudgingly, "We are impressed." Back in the embassy, Trent collapsed onto a couch, arms flung wide like a dramatic painting. Talia stood nearby, arms crossed, one eyebrow twitching like a bad signal. "You did it again," she said. "I'm 2 for 2, Trent replied. "You can't spell success without chaos. You didn't spell anything correctly." "Exactly." He sat up and rubbed his temples. His nose was bleeding slightly, a side effect of the neural enhancers. There was a strange tickle in the back of his mind, like something watching him from inside his own thoughts. For the first time, he looked genuinely unsettled. "I felt something in there," he muttered. "During the bee. Like a whisper." Talia tensed. "A psychic intrusion? Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally losing it. Either way, I think they're trying to get in my head." She nodded slowly. "That means they're scared." That night, the Council of Obliteration held a private meeting. Zarkin paced furiously, his armored boots cracking the obsidian floor with every step. Vrexa floated in her biopod, venom swirling visibly in her veins. Bob ate a glowing fruit and said nothing, though the twitch in his gelatinous cheeks betrayed concern. "He's a fool," Zarkin snarled. "A cosmic accident. He's unpredictable," Brexa replied. And he's winning! We underestimated him. Thrump gurgled ominously. There is talk among the lower species. They see him as inspiring. Bob finally spoke. Then we need to end this. Quickly. Back on Earth, the night was quiet. Too quiet. Trent, finally alone in the embassy garden, tried to enjoy a moment of peace. The sky above shimmered with alien satellites, new constellations blinking into view. He stared up at them, wondering what the third challenge would be. A part of him knew it wouldn't be a game anymore. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in full Earth defense uniform, crisp and polished, her eyes cold and calculating. General Mallory. You've done well, Mr. Maxwell, she said, stepping into the moonlight. Trent blinked. Thanks? Are you here to give me a medal or… I'm here to warn you. The Council isn't playing anymore. They want a finale. Something bloody. Trent narrowed his eyes. Why are you telling me this? She smiled, a smile with no kindness in it. Because I made a deal. If I deliver them Earth's surrender, they'll take me with them. He stood slowly. You're working with them? I'm working for survival, she said. Yours is just inconvenient. Before he could speak again, she vanished into the shadows. Trent stood there, heart racing. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to blare. The third challenge had been chosen. And it wouldn't be like the others. The third challenge was announced without fanfare, without broadcast, without warning. Trent woke up not to music or alarms, but to darkness and silence. The kind of silence that presses in around you like wet cloth. He sat up, blinking through the pitch, only to find that the walls of his embassy room were gone. In their place was a featureless black void stretching in all directions. No stars. No sounds. No exits. Only him. And a single voice. You are now inside the echo trial. The words didn't come from speakers or a mouth. They came from inside his own head, as though his thoughts had been hijacked and repurposed for dramatic announcements. Trent stood slowly, waving his arms. His feet made no sound. His body cast no shadow. He was nowhere and everywhere. He shouted, but no echo returned. Instead, something else answered. It started as a whisper. His own voice, repeating the last thing he said. But warped. Mocking. Then it said something he didn't say. Something cruel. Something honest. You don't belong here, it whispered. You're not a hero. You're a punchline with delusions. Trent spun around, trying to find the source, but there was nothing. Only blackness and the distant echo of his failures. You think luck will save Earth again? That you can bumble through this like everything else? The challenge, it turned out, was internal. A test of willpower, identity, and fear. The alien council wasn't trying to kill his body, they were trying to break his mind. Images appeared. Not on screens, but directly into his perception. He saw himself, alone, sitting in the basement again, forgotten, mocked, everyone on Earth calling him the man who ruined their last chance. Then it changed. Mira, the exiled alien he hadn't seen since the first game, imprisoned again, being tortured while screaming his name. Then his mother, looking disappointed. Not angry. Not sad. Just tired. He dropped to his knees. The voice pressed in. You've lied your way through everything. This was never yours to carry. You were supposed to be the footnote. Not the face of survival. He covered his ears, but the thoughts kept coming. His own doubts, insecurities, every cruel word he'd ever heard replayed in surround sound. He couldn't fight it. He couldn't joke it away. There was no script. No rules. And then, the whisper changed. But what if that's why it works? The tone shifted. No longer cruel, but curious. What if you are the only one who can do this? Because you have nothing to lose. Trent looked up, breathing hard. He blinked, and suddenly the void wasn't empty anymore. In front of him stood, himself. Not the current him. A version from years ago. Younger, thinner, slightly less sarcastic. The younger Trent said, "You never wanted to be a hero. But you didn't run either." Older Trent didn't answer. "You never had the answers," the younger self continued, "but you showed up. You made them listen. That matters." Then, just as suddenly, the younger version shimmered and turned into Mira. "Not real, but real enough," she said. "We didn't need a soldier. We needed someone who wouldn't play by the rules." Trent stood. The voices faded. The darkness peeled away like smoke. A door appeared in the void. Just a single wooden door, out of place, absurdly normal. He walked through it without hesitation. The trial ended. Back on Earth, panic had begun. Trent had disappeared for nearly a full day. Talia had torn through every diplomatic channel, begged alien officials, even tried to bargain with Thrimp, who was busy rearranging his gaseous form into the shape of a small duck. No one would answer her. When the door finally opened and Trent stepped through, sweaty, pale, but standing, everyone stared like they'd seen a ghost. He looked at Talia and whispered, "It wasn't a challenge. It was therapy with special effects." The council summoned him immediately. This time, not in the standard arena, but to their ship. The flagship. The Maw of Judgment. The place where final decisions were made. Talia tried to follow, but was denied. He was brought into the chamber alone. It was vast, endless, filled with relics from planets long gone. Bones of titans. Burned flags. Collars once worn by kings. Zarkin stood in the center, surrounded by the other warlords. "You have completed the 3 trials," he said. "But the final test is truth." Rexa floated forward. "You have no weapons. No army. Earth is defenseless." Trent nodded. "That's true. You've lied. Deceived us. Turned our games into jokes." He shrugged. "Also true. Then why should we let your planet live?" He walked to the center of the room, and for once, didn't smile. He looked up at them, really looked, and said, "Because I made you feel something." They didn't react. He kept going. "You're warlords. You've burned 100 worlds. But you're bored. That's why you make these challenges. That's why you broadcast them like game shows. You're not conquerors anymore. You're performers." That got a reaction. A low hiss from Vrexa. A twitch from Bob. "You needed me," Trent said. "You needed a wildcard. Something fresh. You didn't come here for Earth. You came here for entertainment." Zarkin stepped forward. "Then give us the finale." Trent reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. A USB stick. He tapped it. "Inside this is a full recording of every trial. Every victory. Every accident. Every insult. Subtitled. With bloopers. And audience commentary from Earth's weirdest influencers." He tossed it onto the ground. It bounced once, then slid to a stop at Zarkin's feet. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I'm your ratings." The room was silent. Then Bob said, "I like the spelling bee." Zarkin growled. Vrexa turned away. Thrump made a noise that might have been a sigh. Finally Zarkin said, "Earth is spared." The chamber vanished. Trent collapsed to his knees as he was teleported back to Earth. He opened his eyes to find himself on the embassy lawn, staring at the sky. Above him, the alien fleet turned away. Earth was safe. For now. The warlords were gone. One by one, their ships vanished into the cosmos, disappearing like smoke into the upper atmosphere, leaving behind only the static hum of scrambled satellites and the stunned silence of a world that had just, somehow, survived the impossible. Across continents, the moment hit like a delayed wave. In New York, people poured into the streets. In London, strangers hugged. In Nigeria, musicians played into the sunrise. And in a backyard in Ohio, Trent Maxwell sat on a folding chair, sipping from a warm juice box, wondering how long it would be before someone asked him to do it all over again. He had saved the world with no training, no weapons, and no plan. Technically, he hadn't fought anyone in the traditional sense. He hadn't led an army, or given a stirring speech from the steps of the Capitol, or piloted a last-chance ship into a blazing core. Instead, he had confused, annoyed, and outlasted the galaxy's most powerful beings until they just left. But the strange part wasn't that he survived. It was that, now, people actually looked at him differently. A week after the final challenge, the United Nations held a ceremony in his honor. It was held outdoors, under a newly cleared sky, the air still tinged with the scent of ionized ozone. Leaders from every country arrived. There were drones, cameras, holograms, and a brass band that accidentally played the Imperial March before correcting themselves with the theme from Rocky. Trent arrived late, wearing a wrinkled suit jacket and mismatched socks. The crowd erupted in applause. He flinched like someone had dropped a toaster in the shower. The Secretary General, whose nerves had been stretched thin over the last few weeks, stepped forward and presented him with a medallion shaped like Earth. She cleared her throat and said, "On behalf of humanity, we thank you." Trent looked at the medal, turned it over once, then leaned toward the mic and said, "Does this come with a sandwich voucher or—" The applause doubled. After the ceremony, offers poured in. Governments wanted him to serve as a diplomat. A university offered him an honorary doctorate in improvised diplomacy. Movie studios fought over the rights to his life story, already imagining who'd play him. A streaming service offered him his own show. One country even offered to knight him, though no one was entirely sure they had the legal authority to do so. He declined all of it. Instead, Trent took the shuttle back to his small apartment, now surrounded by security drones and a neighbor who kept asking if he could autograph a toaster. Inside, he found a note. It was simple, written in Myra's oddly beautiful, swirling script. "You played the game better than anyone expected. But the game isn't over." He hadn't seen Myra since before the third challenge. She had vanished, likely hidden by the same warlords who thought she knew too much. But the note was real, and the unease it brought crept in like smoke through the cracks. Talia arrived the next morning. She walked in like she still owned the place, stepped over a pile of alien fan mail, and sat across from him with a cup of coffee that smelled like a dare. "You're not done," she said flatly. "I notice," Trent replied. "There's still something out there." She nodded. "The council left. But not because you scared them. You embarrassed them. And that doesn't last forever." He leaned back. "Then what? We build a space army? Form some kind of ragtag rebel alliance? We prepare. Quietly. Creatively." Trent smiled. "So, chaos?" "Controlled chaos," she corrected. They started small. A tiny team, unofficial and off the books. Mara returned, slipping past scanners like a ghost, her presence hidden from whatever eyes still watched. Together, the three of them set up shop in the back of a rundown food truck that operated under the name Snack Ambassador. The front sold sandwiches. The back held a database of warlord weaknesses, interstellar blackmail, and plans for a planetary shield system built from old satellite parts and bad ideas. They weren't rebuilding the world. They were making it unpredictable. A year passed. The world, despite itself, moved on. New tech flourished. Old wars quieted. Humanity, after facing extinction, decided to try being slightly less self-destructive. Slightly. Occasionally. Once a week. Then the message came. It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't a threat. It was a single phrase, carved into the rings of Saturn in glowing alien script: "The forgotten have returned." Mira read it first. Her hands trembled slightly, the first time Trent had ever seen her afraid. "They were the ones who stood up to the council," she said. "Long ago. Before even Bob. And they vanished. But not because they lost." Trent frowned. "Then why did they disappear?" "Because they chose to," she replied. "They saw what the galaxy had become and left it to rot. Now they're back." Mira nodded. "And they don't like what they see." Talia entered, holding a cracked tablet buzzing with intercepted transmissions. "Every major species is going dark. Radio silence across 4 systems. Something's coming." Trent stood slowly. The sun outside was rising, casting light through the half-burnt curtains of their odd little headquarters. He looked out at the street, people walking, laughing, living. He took a breath. Then he grinned. "Well," he said, "guess we better throw them one hell of a welcome party." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You have a plan?" "Nope. But I've got a food truck, an alien rebel, and the finest ex-intelligence officer on the planet. What could possibly go right?" Outside, the engines of Snack Ambassador fired up, billowing steam and the smell of grilled cheese into the morning air. Above Earth, in the vastness of space, something ancient stirred. And below, the man who once confused his way into saving the planet put on a ridiculous apron, flipped a switch on the dashboard, and whispered to himself with a smirk. "Round 2.